On yesterday's show, we told you where the New York Knicks top talent ranks, but is their supporting cast also elite? Find out in just a sec.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's up? You are Locked On Knicks. My name is Gavin Schall. I'm a credentialed media member that's been covering the New York Knicks for nearly a decade now. He is Alex Wolfe, editor-in-chief of The Strickland, the greatest Knicks website in the whole wide world. You can check them out on all forms of social media over at thestrick.land. This is, of course, the Locked On Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Daily podcast on the New York Knicks, giving the most detailed insight on your favorite team at least 5 days a week. So be sure to join thousands of other Knicks fans in subscribing on both YouTube and your favorite podcast platform for the best insight on your favorite team every single day. On today's show, Alex, we talked about, or at least I talked about, you're going to react to what I talked about, the best of the best, right? And we realized that the Knicks have some of the top end talent in the NBA, but I wanted to stick with the theme, mostly just because I'm having a lot of fun spending hours ranking these players and poring over stats and still probably not quite knowing enough to do this, but doing my best. I wanted to rank the fourth and fifth starters. Maybe we'll do a third show ranking the bench. Again, if you guys enjoy this and respond well to it, we'll keep it going. And seeing where teams stack up in terms of what I would term just sort of like the supporting cast or tertiary pieces on their team. So we are going to tell you a little bit about Mikal Bridges, Mitchell Robinson. Are they top five at their respective spots? But before we get into that, I want to remind everyone that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Alex, I'll leave it to you. I rolled solo earlier. What did you think about my rankings? Just to remind everyone for full context, these are predicated on our Locked On co-hosts rankings of individuals on their team. And then I grouped them by best player, second best player, third best player, and I ranked all the Knicks in those areas. How do you think I did? Was I too low? Was I too high on our guys?
I think I mostly agree. I mean, I think if I'm being completely honest with some of the your top six, which ended with Jalen Brunson at number 6, was Jokic, which I fully agree, Giannis, which I fully agree, SGA, which I fully agree. The only point where I start maybe questioning if Brunson could be one spot higher is with Luka at 4, which on a pure talent level basis, I agree that he should be there. But on like a how many questions are there about this guy long term type level, I go, like I still think that the Mavs were stupid for trading him for what they did when they did it and everything else this past season. And yet, the more time goes by, the more I think, man, like if he doesn't get his conditioning together and if he doesn't start taking things a little more seriously at a certain point, it's going to derail his career in a way where even LA might start questioning their decision to build around him. So from that perspective, I have less worries long-term about Jalen Brunson and even Jason Tatum, who was next on the list, at 5 and 6 after Luka at 4. So I guess I'll say first, that's the only one where I maybe go, like I could almost see Luka at 6 just based off how things sort of ended this year for him. And this is a real prove it year for him to be like, hey, I'm more than just raw talent. I'm also very dedicated to being a winning LA Laker basketball player. So we're going to see how that works out, obviously, once he reports for training camp and everything, and we start seeing how he looks. As far as the second best player rankings, I'm also pretty much right there with you. Although, so Jalen Williams at 1, Maxey at 2.
I said on the show, I don't think he deserves that. I just really like him and I'm really high on him. So that was a very subjective one. I will acknowledge. I just think the guy's incredible. But sorry, go ahead.
I do think he's really good too. I mean, Maxey at 2, Brown at 3, LeBron at 4. I mean, I would say if we're just talking about who at this particular moment in time is better, I'd probably have LeBron like maybe at number 2 on this list, because I think it's just even if you only get one more season out of him, it's going to be one really, really good season. And I refuse to believe he's ever going to age. whenever he decides to call it quits. And then Kyrie Irving, and then Karl-Anthony Towns, then Pascal Siakam. Much as it pains me to admit, like Pascal Siakam, I almost think could be higher, just based off of the postseason that he just had.
Yeah.
I really like the fact that he can do some ball handling and stuff, which is really valuable. I don't really, beyond that number 7, I don't really have any issue because I think those top 7 are all correct. I would maybe just reorder it a little bit, like actually move, perhaps even on my list, I would maybe say Kyrie below Cat and Siakam, perhaps Siakam above Cat, and then I'll probably have LeBron at number 2, and I might move Maxey down to like number 5 or something like that. However that ends up working out. I'd still have Cat probably in that 5 to 6 range when all the dust settled. So I think I'm right there with you there. And then
I think my logic there was, and I don't know if it holds up because Pascal's just so much better defensively than Cat, and just someone you don't have to think about on that end of the floor. While Cat is such a liability, we're screaming about it all the time. I think I just felt Cat was so far from being optimized, where I felt like Siakam was perfectly optimized. Like I just wonder if you flip Rick Carlisle and Tom Thibodeau, how does it look? Like I think there's a world where Cat's putting up like 30 and 11 on insane efficiency in that series. So that was my only argument. LeBron, the only thing there was that I just don't think he can survive 4 playoff rounds playing like high level basketball. But I did, to your point, make the case. Look, if you put LeBron on OKC and he's playing 20 minutes a game in round 1, 20 minutes a game in round 2, 30 minutes round 3, 33, 34 in the finals, maybe on that plan, he's like a much better version of Jalen Williams. So I totally hear you there. I think it's an interesting argument.
Yeah, I kind of just think, it's you have to like manage it right with LeBron given his age and everything. But I think if you can, I think we still see that. I mean, he has some of the craziest skill set
For sure.
available in the NBA still to this day. But I also, good point with the Towns versus Siakam thing. It's just, if we're just talking about pure talent, I think we saw more pure talent than results from Cat this year, because I don't think Tibbs used him right either. And I think we're well on record with how we felt about all that. For the third best player, Chet at number 1. Yeah, that's a no doubter. I mean, it's ludicrous that he gets to be the third best player on a team, but that's why they just won the championship. Derek White at number 2, OG Anunoby at number 3, Aaron Gordon at 4, Bane at 5, Cooper Flag at 6, Amin Thompson at 7, Darius Garland at 8, Nembhard at 9, Draymond Green at 10. I won't go beyond that. But I'm kind of with you on these ones too. I feel the same way about, like, I think White and Anunoby, like, because of what their skill is and the fact that, like, when you get down to third best player level, I think the criteria starts changing a little bit for like, do you need this guy to be the third best, like, potential superstar, or do you need him to be the third best, like, just guy that can be supplementary then? And in that perspective, I think White and Anunoby are like among the best in the NBA at that. Gordon also really elite there too. If I was going to just pick a nit here, I would maybe say I would probably put Amin Thompson over Cooper Flag before Coops played a NBA minute.
Fair.
Just because I think Amin's really, really good, but I'm like super high on him. I would almost, I mean, this is me betting on a leap. I would almost be willing to start thinking about putting him over Bane and or Gordon at this point too, and move him way up there, just because I think the defense, the ball handling, like everything that he offers is just such good, like, third best player material, where he can go out there and like be your best player on any given night if you need him to be, but other nights just kind of play connector, and that you're just gonna get like really good defense out of him like all the time. I'm like super high on him. I mean, if the 3-point shot comes around, like, forget about it. He's gonna be like a multi-time all-star potentially. But for now, I'm just like, I think that he's like, if you given their ages and everything, even though where they're at on this respective list, if you said to me like, hey, would you do Amin for OG straight up, even with the Knicks wanting to contend this year? I'd be like, yeah, I'd probably do it, because I'd be willing to just take that chance on the upside bet, while also having, feeling relatively confident that, like, even if he didn't quite reach OG levels of being able to space the floor and stuff, that he'd still do so much additive stuff that you could just kind of wait out the leap and then be better set for the future. even if it maybe hurts your chances of winning a championship like this year a little bit.
Yeah, my criteria for this was just next season. I completely agree with you. Like if this was who do you want for the rest of their careers, I'm taking Amen Thompson probably over everyone other than Holmgren and Flag. And Holmgren is maybe a little bit of I'd probably take Chet Holmgren, but I'm with you. Like if he's just not one of the worst 3-point shooters in the NBA, if he's like an average 3-point shooter, he probably shoots up to 5 almost right away on this list. I think Flag is just even as a rookie, a safer bet to shoot the ball well and be someone who has to be guarded. I think over 40% from 3 at Duke. And Bane is obviously just one of the best 3-point shooters in the world, even if he doesn't have the supplemental skill set that those guys have. I figured you wouldn't push back on Darius Garland if there are any Cavs fans watching, which I can't imagine there are. I'm sure they would. I talked about Andrew Nembhard. I talked about Draymond Green. We don't have to go into it any further. What we do have to go into a lot further is where the Knicks' 4th and 5th best players rank and why they're up there, but maybe not quite as high as some of you will think. We'll talk about that in just a sec here on Locked On Knicks.
But first, we want to let you know about our friends over at FanDuel. And summer sports are in full swing. Whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it a little more thrilling with FanDuel? You can get it on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. And I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. I'll admit I'm not the most savvy baseball bettor, and yet what's really nice is that if I click on like a Mets game, for example, and I'm going to be watching it and I want to spice things up a little bit and like get rewarded extra if someone hits a home run or whatever, it's pretty cool that FanDuel will have hand-picked bets that other people are making at the top of a game sometimes. So you can just click, make a quick bet, and it's like, oh, this number of people are making this bet. It's like plus 250 or whatever. And it's like, oh, that seems somewhat reasonable. And then if it hits, you win a little bit of money and get to enjoy the game that you were going to watch anyway a little more. It just adds a little extra to it. So if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, folks, we're back in to get into the 4th and 5th best players. Again, according to the forthcoming Locked On Top 100 list, which will be really exciting. The first time that our network has done an exercise like this, which, as a reminder, required at least one host from each team show to list out who they believe are the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, etc. best players on their teams from top to bottom, so that then they can start developing a consensus of how this list is going to come together. But in the meantime, we get to look at all of the raw data of what all these teams, all these team hosts are ranking their guys at, and then play the most fun game, which is ranking the Knicks versus all of those guys. Gavin, you took the time to make the entire list here. I'm just going to sit here and be the critic and tell you whether you're right or wrong. So feel free to introduce this in whichever way you feel fit for the 4th best players as ranked by our Locked On compatriots, and then ranked by you in terms of where you think the Knicks rank in there.
I was going to say, I don't know how this happened, but I think you somehow have the better job than me, but I will power through. Let's go. Let's start with the 4th best player. If you're watching on YouTube and putting the list up, I'm going to try to not keep it in front of my face as I did for the entire show last time. I know that's why all of you tune in. It's to see us. The 4th best player, number 1, a former Knick, Kristaps Porzingis. This is maybe a little rich just because the injury questions are about as bad as anyone in the NBA this side of Joel Embiid. A mystery post-viral infection had him looking like I was going to say Luke Cornett, but Luke Cornett turned out to be really good. I'll say Andrea Bargnani, a dreaded name on this podcast. He was not good in the playoffs. So, but assuming he's recovered from that, I just think from a talent perspective, he's far and away the best guy. And if he was quote unquote Boston's 4th best guy, that was their superpower. Now it could be the Hawks superpower, and there could be a world where Atlanta comes out of nowhere to get the 1 seed next year. And it's just because they have someone like Kristaps Porzingis. I had Jaden McDaniels next. I think just a clear cut at this point, top 5 wing defender in the NBA, probably a top 10 to 12 in the NBA. Really emerged offensively to be a much more substantial piece in the playoffs than he was in the past. I had Jalen Suggs at third. I think this will be a controversial pick for Knicks fans over Mikal Bridges. Most of the all-in-one stats I looked at just scream that Suggs is a better player. And as we'll get to with Bridges, I think Bridges was below average defensively for most of last year and until the playoffs, at least, while Suggs is special on that end of the floor and is emerging as a solid enough offensive player. He's kind of learned how to shoot, even though he is a bully out on the court. Aaron Nesmith, last guy I have over Mikal Bridges. And I'm really curious your take on that one, Alex. I am not really basing this on their careers or Mikal Bridges obviously has just had much higher highs in general than Aaron Nesmith, has a much longer track record. It was probably, despite a down offensive season, still probably pretty clearly the better offensive player in the regular season. Just watching that series, I kind of thought Aaron Nesmith was the better guy on both ends. Maybe that is overreacting to 6 games, but that was my takeaway. And then I have Mikal Bridges next, and I'll stop right there. What do you think of my top 5?
Yeah, I think that there's an argument to be made for moving Mikal up to as high as 3.
Sure.
On the same logic of the Cat over Siakam thing, in terms of, I think if anyone has a bone to pick about how they were used on the Knicks last year and that they were put in suboptimal situations regularly, and I mean, I feel like if we could have had fly on the wall recordings of those exit interviews that went down at the end of the season, at the end of the postseason when the Knicks called everybody in, I would be willing to bet that this guy was one of the loudest about not liking Tom Thibodeau and how things were done. But I think that Bridges has a real argument to be made of like, hey, maybe if I had just been used better, like not been put into point of attack, screen navigation 100% of the time, every single game, and made to play 40 minutes a night with the expectation that I'm going to be healthy, with the expectation that I'm just going to magically be able to guard the other team's best player at 100% effort every single play of every single game for 40 minutes, like maybe I could have had a better season. And also maybe if the Knicks had, been a little more under Tibbs, had been a little more creative about how to get him involved on offense, maybe the like only really, really consistent stretch of offensive play that we saw from him wouldn't have occurred just when Jalen Brunson was hurt and when he kind of just had to de facto start handling the ball more. I think if you work to figure out better actions for him on offense, which I think is, I mean, we said this a million times this season, like he's not a hot potato guy. Like, I don't think you just throw it to him and say, figure something out. Like, I think you have to set up actions for him, get him involved, especially if you want to get him downhill. Like, he's not going to do that of his own volition. You have to kind of like set up scenarios where he can like run off of an off-ball screen or something, try to get loose on the baseline. He's a decent finisher for his career when he gets inside, but he just so seldom got there this year because just off the dribble, he doesn't really have the juice to get right by somebody all the way to the rim like that. And then we noted too, he avoids contact like the plague, I think, in the interest of preserving his Iron Man streak, of preserving his health and everything else, doesn't want to potentially get into a rough and tumble scenario under the hoop like that. But I think if he gets properly optimized, like both on defense, if they can find a way to let him play free safety a little more, let him just get hands in passing lanes and get out in transition and stuff, I think he's great with that. And then on offense, develop more actions to get him, more actively involved. I think we look and then go, oh, all right. Yeah. I mean, then he becomes the guy that we thought that he was going to be when the Knicks traded for him, which is like, we probably would have, if this was this time last year, we would have had him on the 3rd best player list. And not even if it was this time last year, he would have been in contention for 2nd best player before Randall got traded also, because we were pretty high on that deal at the time saying, yeah, this is going to be like your 2nd or 3rd option now on this team. But, now I think it's pretty clear that he's like the 4th best, but he has potential to be like one of the best 4th best players in the NBA if he's just utilized a little better. And we're going to need to just kind of see proof of like with better utilization that he's not in some way like cooked physically or something like that, which led to what happened last year. And then it was more schematic. So it's going to be kind of a push and pull, but like I could see us looking back in 6 months time and saying, maybe he should actually be almost number one on this list. And I will just say also, while we're talking about things we're worried about, whatever the illness was for Porzingis and all that, I hope Atlanta got some good medicals or whatever before they made that trade, or after, that he passed with flying colors when he got there, because whatever was going on with him in the playoffs last year would have probably scared me away, if I'm being honest, of potentially trying to trade him once Boston made him available. If he looks anything like that, like, he drops to bottom 10 of this particular list. Like, so that's a huge variable for him. And I'm very curious to see how he's going to look early season, then as the season goes on with Atlanta. And that gives me a little pause about putting him number one, but I get why you did it, because the peak version is definitely stands out amongst this particular crowd.
Yeah, I think you are absolutely right to point out some inconsistent logic on my part. And that's fair. I think if I applied the same standard, maybe he would be 3 on this list. To me, just the total aversion to physicality is not something I can really pinpoint on Tibbs. Tibbs kind of asked him to be physical defensively and tried to get that motor back up and running. And even though in Phoenix, like, my memory serves, like, he did spend substantial time off the ball. Like, he was a fantastic screen navigator when asked to, and he went from that to, according to B-Ball Index, out of players who defended a significant number of screens, like, I think he was the single worst screen navigator in all of basketball. To your point though, in the playoffs, first 2 rounds used in a different role, like, he looked awesome defensively, like playing free safety against the Celtics, 2 different game-winning defensive plays that ultimately, like, swings that series in the Knicks' favor against the Pistons. Like, he looked more than physical enough. I thought doing a fantastic job guarding Cade Cunningham. Like, he had one of the dunks of the playoffs, like, in transition, I think, over Cade, if I'm remembering correctly. Like, we certainly saw moments, we certainly saw flashes. He never got to the line, to your point. Outside of cuts in transition, he rarely got to the rim. I think what's exciting and encouraging about Mikal Bridges is, like, despite everything we said, at least offensively, he was still quite a good player. And that's including the fact that his shot was just broken to some extent from the get-go. And he just sort of survived off having elite touch, which flashed in the mid-range and just did not translate to anything behind the arc, except for the corners because of the form mishaps. Like, he just did not generate a lot of power. That gets cleaned up. Better usage on both ends, more off the ball defensively, to your point, more sets to get him going offensively. Like, there is a really, really, really good player that fits very well on this team for the New York Knicks. I would not be surprised if there's a world where he's number 1 on this list. I would more likely bet on someone like Jaden McDaniels to continue to get better. I'll shout out, before we wrap up, some tertiary guys on this list. At Fred VanVleet, just for the podcast audience, Fred VanVleet at 6, Immanuel Quickley at 7, Lu Dort at 8, Bradley Beal at 9, Andrew Wiggins at 10. Maybe at some point when we're really in the dregs of the summer, I will expand on some of these, but since they're not Knicks related, I won't. For people, especially on the podcast side, who can't see this and are curious, I guess you'll still have to go to YouTube, but I'll publish it in the top comment on YouTube, and I'll put it in the episode description so you can see the full list and the first of the 3 rounds that we did. But still one more to go. Mitchell Robinson, who we both love. Did I dare rank Mitchell Robinson number 1? Because he's number 1 in my heart. We'll talk about it in just a sec here on Locked On Knicks. All right, we're back here on Locked On Knicks, going over the rankings of the 5th best players in the NBA. And I will once again add the qualifier that we did not do these. For example, as you see, I'll just bring the rankings up. I have Jared Allen at number 2 on this list. I personally think he's pretty clearly the Cavs' 4th best player. Danny Cunningham, the awesome host over at Locked On Cavs, my good buddy, he thinks Jared Allen, after a pretty dismal playoffs, maybe that factored in, he thinks that he is the 5th best player on the Cavs. So he's very high on this list instead of maybe being slightly lower on the 4th best list. So honestly, he would have probably been top 5 on the 4th best list. But I have our old friend Isaiah Hartenstein at number 1. Close call between him and Jared Allen. I just think he was a little bit more useful in the playoffs, and his physicality translates a little bit better, even though Allen is still a far more talented scorer than Hartenstein is. 3 and 4, pretty interchangeable for me. Naz Reid and Peyton Pritchard, I think very similar, even though they're opposites physically, just spark plug scorers off the bench who are probably just overqualified in terms of pure scoring talent, and in a different context could put up very efficient 20 points a game. Pritchard, just one of the best 3-point shooters in all basketball. I have Mitchell Robinson at 5, and it is frankly mostly because of the injury concerns and just because I don't think you can count on him to play 82 games. You have to really, really tightly manage his minutes. Mitch, purely on impact, I think has a pretty solid case to be number 1 on this list, despite the very obvious limitations in his game. I've been talking for about 5 minutes straight, though. What do you think about those rankings?
I'm actually, as much as you just sung Jared Allen's praises and said that you would have him as the 4th best player, I'm fading him a bit, and I'm also fading Naz Reid. I would actually just, if I was looking at your top 5 there, with Isaiah Hartenstein at number 1, I would just bump up Pritchard and Mitch to 2 and 3, and then Allen and Reid at 4 and 5. And then
Allen
that looks
Pritchard,
no, Allen and Reid. So I would put.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so
Okay,
I would take
fault.
Pritchard and Mitch as like a grouping.
Yeah.
Move them up to number 2 and 3. Bump Allen and Reid down to 4 and 5.
Gotcha.
I think that's looking all right. I unfortunately agree that TJ McConnell probably deserves to be number 6.
I thought that was a funny one in there.
Yeah.
Guy was the best player on the floor in the NBA Finals in Game 7 for a whole quarter. Like that's something. Yeah.
And this might be too much of like looking at playoff results still, or still having that be the freshest thing in our minds, or at least in my mind. But I look at it, and that's why I'm fading Allen. I'm like, I feel like we've consistently seen that he kind of withers in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I mean, Mitch, especially this year, was the most, in my opinion, maybe the most impactful player on a team that made the Eastern Conference Finals, like on a minute per minute basis. Obviously, he's not out there scoring the points like Brunson or Cat or whatever. He's not doing those things, but just in terms of the impact that he made, like on the glass, on defense, obviously, like just being able to be all over the floor, showing the versatility to guard like pretty much 1 to 5 in the playoffs and contain anyone that he got switched onto. And then, again, I'll just say rebounding again. Like rebounding is huge with him. That is like one of the biggest things he brings, is that that you're getting a really hard box out on the defensive glass where someone else will probably get the opportunity to get the board other than the other team's center and start like a fast break. And then obviously the offensive boards don't need any explanation. Like he is the best offensive rebounder in the entire NBA. So that's why I think I have him a little higher. Pritchard, is, again, much as I hate to admit it, like he's really good. Really, really talented. I think that in many ways he's sort of like what Knick fans had always fantasized that like Immanuel Quickley might end up being, which is just like a guy that could come in and just pour in buckets off the bench and like not lose you the game defensively, but like, be a 6th man and be cool with that and come in and just like, but also get consistent minutes. Like that was always the issue with Quickley. It was like he would be the 6th man, but then Tibbs only play him like 20 minutes or whatever, and you'd be like, but what if he played 30? Because that might have swung this whole game. Pritchard is kind of in that like perfect scenario where he's like the 6th man, but also probably gets, it can bank on getting the 5th most minutes on the team any given night with how the rotations work out. So yeah, I unfortunately really like him. Hartenstein, I agree too. I mean, he's just like, he was just on a championship team, and he has some of the most impressive metrics. Like if you just look at all the catch-alls back to when he was on the Knicks, and then also with the Thunder this year, that just paint him as one of the most impactful players in the NBA. I would say if I was just looking at your list, if I wanted to just like hot take it up and find one guy that I think is maybe like too low. Yeah. So I'll say one guy that I think is maybe too high. Brook Lopez at this stage in his career, I think maybe is not quite there. Although you start looking at the guys underneath them and you go, I mean,
it gets thin fast when you go to the 5th best player. But
yeah, I'm a pretty big Christian Braun guy. I would probably have him a little bit higher, because I like his game a lot. I hate, again, another one I hate admitting, but I believe in Jared McCain. I think Jared McCain's going to be really good this year.
Yeah,
I think I think if that rookie season didn't get cut off by that injury, like we're looking at him going like, oh man, like with him and Edgecombe and Maxey, like the Sixers are in really, really good shape. I mean, I still think that, but I think it's just like people's memories. I'm not accusing you of this, but I think that in general, like the memories of McCain are so far back now because he only got to play the first like third of the season or whatever before he got hurt, that it's easy to forget. Like, I mean, he looked like
he's insane.
The steal of this draft. Like he was going to be in my opinion, the runaway rookie of the year winner before he got hurt. So I would probably have him up there like flirting with the top like 12
Yeah.
there, I think, because I think that he has the potential to be this year more impactful than like Kuminga, for example, wherever Kuminga ends up. Keegan Murray, I think it's like a question of how will he be utilized by the new coach, which, that's one of those guys that, like, if you want to talk about things to possibly be worried about with Mike Brown, like, I think that a lot of Sacramento fans were not terribly happy with how Keegan Murray got utilized under Mike Brown. So maybe something to keep in mind and keep an eye on as the Mike Brown era starts. But yeah, Brook Lopez too, kind of similar to what you're saying with like having to manage Mitch. I feel like you kind of have to like manage him at this point, like to a certain extent with like his age and keeping his minutes in check and whatever. I just think there's some guys that you can kind of turn loose a little more than him, which would make me rank them a little higher. That said, with the crew that he's with now, like the retirement home and on the Clippers, all gunning for one last. Actually, no, the Clippers are like it's like Ocean's 11 or something, but like you're not totally sure that they're gonna pull the chop off. But it's just like this assembly of like a heist movie where they're just like, we're gonna go get what we're doing one last job and we're gonna go get the NBA championship.
Adding Chris Paul is crazy. That's just like we gotta go deeper into the retirement home, man. There was this guy in the 1930s. He was the best there was, and that's not it's tongue in cheek. Like Chris Paul's probably still pretty good, but
yeah,
man, they're an old team. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say now they just need to find some way to get LeBron there and then like pull Dwayne Wade out of retirement and then it's like everything Knicks fans wanted 10 years ago.
Yeah,
perfect.
Beautiful team. All right, I hear you on Mitch. It is a compelling argument. I'm willing to acquiesce to it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else going on here that I wanted to talk about. Not really. Jared McCain was just a sample size thing. I agree with you. If he proves it over a season, he should be hired despite the defense being bad. I'm ready for some mean comments about having RJ Barrett at 21. I am just openly a year removed from having RJ on the team, a year and a half removed. Not a believer in his game really translating unless it's as a sixth man and you kind of just build some shooting heavy lineups around him. All right, real quick before we wrap up, tertiary starter standings. I will do a final standings at some point when we do the bench as well. But Minnesota, 57 points. Again, that would be a little lower if you've Nas a little lower, but I had him high. So 57, 52 for Indiana, 53 for OKC. That swung on me moving Hartenstein up last second. The New York Knicks in fourth at 52 points. Houston Rockets in fifth at 49. So the New York Knicks, fourth in top end talent, fourth in tertiary talent. I don't want to get too far ahead in spoiling this, but if you want to say bench is 6 through 9, 6 through 10, I have a feeling the Knicks are going to be top 5, top 6, top 7 in that as well. Again, arbitrary. I am probably biased towards the Knicks guys. I watch them infinitely more than these players on other teams, Alex. But I will say, if you think my list is even somewhat objective, a pretty good indicator of the wealth that Mike Brown has to work with.
Yeah, I mean, considering that we're going to get to the 6th plus player and it's going to be Josh Hart, like Jordan Clarkson, former 6th man of the year winner, pretty solid. I mean, it's like you said, it's really good depth for the Knicks in terms of that. So yeah, I think it's a solid ranking. I think that this is pretty fair. I mean, I think that even going into last season, prior to seeing obviously that under Tibbs, the starting lineup as he constructed it and then rolled with didn't really gel quite the way you would want. And, ultimately became a negative in some metrics. We were just looking at that from a talent perspective going into the season and saying, this is as good of a 5-man lineup as any team in the NBA. And so I think it makes sense that the potential starting 5 of the Knicks next year that we just went through between that first episode and then the little bit to start this episode and then the 4th and 5th guys and Bridges and Mitch, that they would rank pretty high because I think Leon Rose has done a really good job of building that sort of team together. I also just looked it up. I'm actually going to retract my Brook Lopez statement. I did not realize that man has played damn near almost averaged 80 games a season over the last 3 years, which is crazy. So,
and tells you that going to Disney World 15 times a year is very good for your body.
Very good for your body. So 78 games, 79 games, 80 games, all over 30 minutes a game. So you know what? I take it back. I was thinking more back to prior to that when injuries were more of a thing in his career at different times. particularly the 21-22 season when he only played 13 games, but he's been rock solid the last few years. So you know what? Your ranking is fine. Number 9 is great because if he could just do that again, that's solid by me. Anyway, yeah, I think I'm good with this though. I mean, anything that places the Knicks in the top 5 2 times in a row, pretty solid to me, I think. So
Yeah.
I'm totally good with these rankings.
Yep, no bias here. We'll be back, maybe doing 6 through 9, maybe doing some more player previews. You'll have to tune in to find out. He's Alex. I'm Gavin. We'll talk to you soon on Locked On Knicks.